Michael Kroger, what on earth are the Liberals thinking? More money for the ABC, and just before the election, it's so obvious.
Yes, well, Andrew, I think the opportunity to fix the ABC through legislative change has now been lost. I think there's been a Senate majority for a change to the ABC Act for a couple of years now. Of course, the reps is the government controls. So I think that opportunity to force more balance in the ABC has been lost. Maybe the next parliament might come again, but I think this is just the government clearing the decks before the election. The fewer fights it has, the better for it. If and when it gets onto its theme, which will be economic leadership, it doesn't want to have a fight with the ABC. It doesn't want to have a fight with people over the Great Barrier Reef, etcetera, etcetera. So it's clearing the decks. But at what cost? Do the ABC deserve extra funding? No, they certainly do not. The performance of the board has been disgraceful. Laura Tingle firing off last week at the press club was appalling. The organisation is more biased against the Conservative government than I've ever seen the ABC in its history, and I've been watching it since the 1960s. It's worse than ever. So should they have been rewarded? No, they should have been admonished. And, more fool the government for appointing this chairwoman, Ida Buttrose, who's been a hopeless failure, hopelessly out of her depth, and a weak and insipid board. Yeah, and a weak and insipid board who should be ashamed of themselves.
They should indeed. Should just go with the flow, and indeed she's done it. Steve Conroy,
and that's what's
can
happened.
You explain this decision without gloating, please?
Yeah, look, I mean, Morrison is, clearing the barnacles, as Michael's described it. I mean, what he's really trying to do here is neutralise issues that are threatening him in his own safe seats, those inner city seats like Wentworth, North Sydney, Kooyong. Let's be clear, Josh Frydenberg signed off on this. So they wanted to make sure that they can pretend that they fixed those problems when they're under pressure on them in those traditionally safe Liberal seats. I mean, I just think it's fantastic that after 9 years of telling us there's nothing wrong with the Great Barrier Reef, now they've decided to save it. Cuddly koalas, who can criticise saving koalas? The ABC, I mean, I always do make this point, and Michael knows this whenever we talk about the ABC. The ABC is not controlled by any Labor group. It's controlled by a combination of the left wing of the New South Wales Liberal Party. The left wing of the New South Wales Liberal Party, who, to be fair, hate the Conservative wing almost as much as they hate the Labor Party. So between the Greens
I think you're
and
wrong.
the New South Wales Labor Party
Steve,
left.
I hate them more.
I'll concede that one to you, Andrew. The Labor Party get to pay things.
It's not even debatable. I tell you what, the left wing of the Liberal Party in New South Wales is more to the left of the right wing of the Labor Party in Victoria, and that is saying a hell of a lot.
That is probably true.
Michael Kroger.
That is a big but true statement.
Those are the ones I like best, big but true. Steve Conroy made a good point there, right? That this is to try to deal with an issue, put it away, But Michael, again, it's like I said about another issue today with the Liberals in my column. It's the kind of thing that still makes the left hate the Liberals, but just makes the right now have more contempt for them.
Well, I think that's true, quite frankly. You are never going to win an election and Malcolm Turnbull almost proved this correct in 2016, by pandering to the left. I mean, the golden rule in politics, secure your base and build from there. And that's what Howard did, it's what Hawke did, it's what Menzies did. Any long-term successful leader keeps the base solidified, and something like this is not going to help with the base of the party because they detest the ABC bias. They don't mind ABC Kids. They love ABC Rural. They think it's important to be emergency services broadcaster. But the ABC in Ultimo, News and Current Affairs in Ultimo, uses all of those parts of the ABC as a political shield against its own outrageous behaviour. And does it help with the base of the party? No, it'll just anger a lot of people because they think the ABC has been disgraceful. They've been disgraceful to Morrison, and as I said, they've got worse during the course of this government.
Why do you hate bananas in pyjamas so much, Michael? Seriously, you just got to stop.
Honestly, but Stephen, that is the way the ABC hides behind that, like you just hate bananas in pyjamas. They actually played the theme from Play School this morning against the, like, it's not about bananas in pyjamas, guys. It's about the bias of the news side of it. I mean, really, stop hiding behind that banana. The Greens today, listen, Anthony Albanese, I've got to give him credit, has run such a disciplined campaign, so small target. He rarely emerges where you can actually have, get a good side at him. But today the Greens put him in the spotlight by saying, well, after the election, if Labor wants the Green support to form government, if it wants Green support to get through the stuff through the Senate, it should halt all new coal, gas and oil projects for 6 months. Now, Labor leader Anthony Albanese said, no, this was a con, won't happen. Why should we believe him when we remember what Labor did after the 2010 election, make a deal with the Greens that gave us the carbon tax that Julia Gillard promised we'd never have?
Well, mate, you shouldn't believe him. And there'll be some kind of unofficial alliance with the Greens after the election, not so much in the reps where they may only have one vote, but certainly in the Senate to get legislation through. And we know what the Greens' record is on all of these issues. So take foreign policy, for example, where Albanese's invisible. I mean, for example, what's Albanese's view on Israel? I mean, he's been there once. I don't think he's been there for 20 years, one of the most important democracies in the world. 3 years ago, he said that Israel were having settlements in the Gaza Strip, which was complete nonsense. That was 4 years ago. 3 years ago, he was pictured with Jeremy Corbyn. When he went to Israel, I think 20 years ago with Joe Hockey, he made some very odd statements about having visited Israel and Palestine. He started the Friends of Palestine group in federal parliament, etc., etc. I never trust someone from the left of the Labor Party on Israel. Never. Never. I trust the right of the Labor Party, Shorten, Conroy, Richard Marles, Michael Eason, Mary Eason, all of the great figures, the New South Wales right and the Victorian Labor right. You can trust on Israel, but never the left. And this bloke has never paid proper attention to Israel. He's never made any grand statements in support of the Israel democracy, except to say, he supports a two-state solution. Now, if he wants to be the leader of this country and he hasn't visited Israel, one of the most important, courageous democracies in the world, he hasn't been there for 20 years and he has no idea what's going on in Gaza, then I would worry about any alliance with the Greens because we know what their view is of Israel.
Look,
we know what they think.
You make a good point. You make a good point, but the election, I think, will be decided more on issues right here. And on that point, the question of trust for Anthony Albanese, Steve, you were part of that government in 2010.
Yeah, no,
why should we trust him when he says there'll be no deal with the Greens?
Because he won't do one. I mean, Albo has spent his entire political life fighting the Greens in his own electorate. He is one of, if I wanted to talk about how to combat the Greens here in Victoria, the first person I would give a call to is Albo. So, mate, come on down and tell us about how you have fought off the Greens in your electorate and those state seats around you. So let's be clear, Albo has cut his teeth on fighting Greens. And secondly, and more importantly, he has stood shoulder to shoulder with the Israeli community in Australia to fight off the idiotic, moronic BDS campaigns, those boycott campaigns. And he is publicly on the record for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years opposing them. And Michael's dredging up something that he may or may not have said 20, 25 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago.
20 or 25 years ago.
He's pictured with Jeremy Corbyn 3 years ago. He put a Facebook post up of him with his great friend Jeremy Corbyn. That was in 2019. What leader of Australia wants to be photographed with Jeremy Corbyn, given Jeremy Corbyn's history on these issues? And Albanese puts his photo up. I agree with you, Andrew, by the way. Albanese's run a fantastic campaign being Mr. Nowhere, Nobody, Mr. Invisible, and it's working so far. I congratulate him.
Yeah, but the point is, of course, he's been allowed to do that because the Liberals seem to be more interested in talking about themselves than Labor.